Thank you, Will. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the second webinar that I've done with office centers. The last one seemed to go very well. Folks asked for a follow-up on that. That one, we went deep into what we call the 4 colors styles of personality, and we'll actually touch on that a little bit. We have a pretty intimate group here. We've got looks like about a dozen of us. Feel free to pop on the camera if you want. It's always nice to see faces. Use the chat box to ask any questions. If you really want, and unmute yourself to ask a question. Nothing wrong with that as well. So we've got ourselves a little less than an hour. I try to position these things for 40 minutes, so there's plenty of time for any Q&A or questions. Interestingly enough, this particular webinar is an echo of one that I just did last week for a group of 120 employees out in Hawaii. And so we were able to test some things. We were able to try some things. Now, that was an intact organization. You are a group of individuals. And so you're not an organization. You're part of a larger organization, office centers, because we all office here. So we've got different lenses by which we can look at and kind of connect with the world that we live in. And go through that. So I'm gonna test some things, I guess is what I'm saying. It'll be interesting to get your feedback. Obviously, with the virtual world, my facilitation, my practice tends to have me physically with clients, groups of 5 people to 500, and facilitating programs and leading them through transformation and change and organizational effectiveness. But we were able to shift. We were able to pivot very quickly and start to do this in a virtual way. And any feedback that you can give us would be great. So I'm just going to get into it and make sure that the slides are working here. And what you should see on the top of the slide is the word purpose. And the reason why that word is up there is because for the last, probably half dozen years, I've started my sessions asking the question, what is your purpose? Because it's just grounded in so much theory and work. And given our current state and situation, I just want to spend a moment outlining why that word is so important. Number one, we have, as Will mentioned, scientifically the most balanced, actionable engagement model on the planet. I've been an expert in employee engagement for many years, back when I was just a young HR kid. Working for various global companies like Pfizer and Pillsbury, and then spending time at Carlson companies, I just got really good at it. I was working with Gallup organization, which many of you know, and working with a tool called the Q12. And I started pushing Gallup in all sorts of different directions and allowed them to even expand the way in which they looked at employee engagement. And back in 2016, I decided to step back and do what's called a metadata analysis, where you do research on research. And I found there to be significant gaps, not only in their model, but Connexa's and Glint's and all sorts of other engagement models out there. So we know we've got scientifically the most balanced, actionable model. And when we started to do our research based on the data that we had, I got to present at the University of Minnesota a year ago, April, and we presented our findings. What we found was that purpose was the #1 factor of engagement to drive the overall model. So you look at the model within the model and say, okay, of these 8 different factors of engagement, which one of them is driving the model more than anything else? It's like a planet with heavy gravity. And purpose was the #1 by far, if and only if trust was present. If you pulled trust out of the equation, which I consider to be the most valued currency within any organization or organizations dealing with each other, you can't do business with folks if you don't trust them, right? I can't work with a coworker if I don't trust them to get their work done, and vice versa, or I can't trust leadership if they're inconsistent with what they say and what they do. So trust is critical. When you have trust, though, purpose just jumps out ahead and it starts to drive the rest of the model. So we knew that to be true as well. What we also know, based on some other incredible research, and I won't get too deep into it, but it really goes around resiliency and bounce back and agility and change. What we find is that when you have purpose at those times of your life where things are uncertain or there's a lot of upheaval, it seems to be purpose that drives and brings you through that. If anybody's ever heard of Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's, on Meaning, and just the incredible experience that he went through with the concentration camps. It's purpose that brought him through that. So when we look at having a common purpose and a shared purpose, now that's where you start to get the strength in numbers, right? We hear about that when we're driving collectively across that. And there's all sorts of examples, obviously, in time with war, 9/11, anything that's dealing with great adversity, natural disasters. We tend to come together and we become stronger as a result of it. We unite, right? There's that sense of unity. Now, what's interesting in 2020, though, is a little different, right? Because when we talk about COVID's kind of this unknown. It's like invisible, right? And as a result of that, it's hard to kind of say, okay, we have a shared purpose around this little virus and to come up. Now, granted, there's people that are doing incredible things and stepping up to the plate and helping out and doing just amazing things in being able to do that. But there is this sense of helplessness and hopelessness even during this. And this is what we're finding. And that's why the level of stress for individuals go up as well. So the invitation at this point is to allow ourselves to go deeper, right? To explore, to journey deeper within ourselves, to truly understand what all is going on. And so we like to use a little bit of a metaphor here around purpose, and that is, it's kind of that compass for us, right? It helps us to understand and get clear around our true north. When we have a true north and an understanding of that, we have a direction in which we're able to go. So I'm going to ask the question right now for everybody, and go ahead and type it into chat. Get everybody testing the whole chat thing here. Between the wind and the rudder, so obviously I'm a bit of a sailor. When you look at the concept of purpose, if you had to guess, or if you have a pretty good sense of it, do you think purpose is more of the wind or more of the rudder? If you had to pick one or the other, which one would you pick? So go ahead and just click into the chat box there. I'm going to see if I can pull up chat here without messing anything up. So this is that interactive part. This is, as you're finishing up your lunch or doing anything else. We got a couple rudders, we got a wind, we got a rudder. And it was one of those, philosophical questions that I got to have a discussion with this morning with Ian Stevenson. If any of you are familiar with Cargill, Ian ran all of employee effectiveness and organizational effectiveness and strategy for Cargill for years. He was there for almost 3 decades. And he asked the question, what comes first, passion or purpose? And what we say is that passion is the wind in your sails. It's the energy, right? It's what drives you forward. But if you fill your sails full of a lot of passion and energy, but you don't have direction, right? You're flying with the wind. There's no set direction. The rudder is what gives you direction, right? That's your purpose, right? So, but what's interesting is what's connected to a rudder, right? How do you steer the rudder? Well, it's the helm. And a helm of a ship can be the wheel, and you see it more metaphorically. It can also be a tiller. It's anything that steers the ship is the helm. And so that's why the whole concept of grab the helm and leading from the helm came about, is because what we do and what we package is the ability to empower or allow individuals to take command of their own purpose, right? To be able to drive that forward. And this is based, again, on years of research and different tools and models that we've worked with over the years. So again, yep, the wind in the sails is the passion, the rudder is the purpose, and the helm is what steers that, okay? So we're gonna continue on next little bit here. Who knows the concept of VUCA? I've got some folks smiling already when they saw the word. Anybody know what VUCA means? And it's an acronym. Type it in the chat if you have any clue, if you want to guess on 2 or 3 of the acronyms. VUCA is a term that's been used, I don't know, actually, I gotta cite this. I gotta find out what the original origin is of it. Anybody have any idea what VUCA is? All right, nobody's clicking, so I'll just keep going through it. VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, dealing with complexity, and ambiguity. All right, so VUCA environment and that's kind of what we're in right now, right? We've got the COVID thing happening. We obviously have the social unrest. We've got the George Floyd situation. We've got a presidential election. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics and all that kind of stuff, but the point is there's a lot going on, right? And when there's a lot going on and there's a lot of uncertainty, right, it creates this volatility, this uncertainty. And just so you know, again, my research as Will mentioned, it's the University of St. Thomas, was all around trust and building trust into relationships, into communities, into organizations, into teams. And inconsistency and uncertainty is the poison, is the toxin that really breaks down trust. But when you bring, again, if you're able to build that up and you're able to bring purpose into play and you start to develop that shared purpose, you're able to switch the discussion around VUCA. All right, it becomes this clear vision, this shared vision that we all have. So leaders at times of great change, I have a great case study here just on the west side of the Twin Cities of an organization. Right when COVID hit, the CEO wanted to go off that Monday and just literally start communicating all sorts of stuff and kind of taking kind of a shoot from the hip approach. And the HR VP was calm enough in the situation, said, no, give us 48 hours. And they went back and they got really clear with the vision. They got really clear with creating a sense of understanding. They got really clear, the clarity piece on how they were going to care for their employees and work through this, and how they were going to be agile in this situation and shift. And they were able to package that in less than 48 hours. Here's the incredible thing. We pulse engagement on a quarterly basis. Engagement is the most leading indicator in the entire organization. And a lot of organizations do it annually as a benchmark, and that's fine, but that becomes a lagging indicator then, right? Financials are the most lagging, and we measure it in a nanosecond. Engagement's the most leading, and we do it once a year. So the model's a little backwards, folks. But they went ahead and measured engagement right after COVID hit, probably about 3 weeks after. Their engagement scores skyrocketed. I have another firm that did the exact same thing. Their engagement scores skyrocketed. We're talking complete uncertainty, but they were able to get their scores to go up because people had a shared vision, they cared for one another, and they were pivoting. So just taking the time to do that. I have one other organization that we were measuring as well during that time. They did not do that. They had all sorts of other uncertainties and other things that hit, and their engagement scores dropped. Now, here's the piece of that. I celebrate all three of those. And we celebrate that with the organizations, because when engagement scores drop, when we do it quarterly, we have to celebrate that, because that's the employees having a voice in the moment, expressing what's going on. And that gives us the ability then to adjust and to adapt. And we actually create an employee-led culture of engagement, because they're the ones that are coming up with the ideas to be able to generate through that. So all I'm trying to point out here is that purpose is critical on a lot of different fronts. And when you have it, it's what helps you get through these times of uncertainty. Any questions, reactions, thoughts? I know everybody's on mute, but if you want to click off, if you want to ask, if you want to put anything in the chat box, you can. All right, everybody can hear me, right? All right, excellent. All right, so what I'm going to present here is, anybody know what this vessel is? Obviously, we got to have fun with some sailing ships here, right? Does anybody ever visit the islands of Hawaii? Awesome. It's my favorite place to go, other than the lakes area of Minnesota. All right. This is the Hukulea. The Hukulea is a vessel that was built in the early 70s. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick little story lightly as it relates to the Hukulea, and I'm going to present here the leading from the helm model. So the leading from the helm model is a systems theory model. What it means is that it's balanced, it's holistic. So if people are familiar with EOS and traction, this is a very complementary model to that. It's in that it supports it and helps drive it even further. But basically what it does is it maximizes human potential on the right side to drive organizational performance on the left. You'll see elements of the balanced scorecard and other things like that. So what we know is when we go into organizations and we help to discover around their organization on these 8 different areas, it gives us a holistic view and allows us to drive that organization forward in the direction that we want to. The important thing is a lot of times organizations come to me and say, we need leadership development, or we need help on trust, or we need process reengineering. That's fine, we'll work on that area, but we're aware that it's going to have an impact on the other 7 areas. And if you don't take that into account, change management, it will eat you up. These other areas will start to act almost as blockers. But if we work to create the path on all of those, then the change becomes more effective. So the Hukulea is a rebuilt replica of how the islanders got around, you know, the Pacific centuries ago. And we're going to try to do a 3-minute video, and I don't want to give too much away. But they created this back in the early 70s, and it was just intended to kind of honor their past. But what it did is it turned into this much larger initiative that's now taken themselves over the globe. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to kind of audit the video that we're listening to through the lens of the helm. And I'm going to type into chat each one of the areas. Strategy is the purpose, right? It is the true north, okay? So that's the first one. Then leadership, okay? And I have to ask the question, who's listening that's a leader, all right? If you don't have your hand up right now, you got to get them both up, right? Everybody here is a leader. We all have the ability to either inject trust within the culture, or we have the ability to strip it out. Because if we're consistent with what we say and what we do, all right, we're building trust. If we're inconsistent, if we start to undermine things and talk and all these other things, that strips trust out of the equation or out of the culture. So each one of us is either investing in building the trust or taking it away. And I'll argue that we really need to be building that trust. So self-awareness is a huge part, and it's actually the cornerstone for leadership development. Then when we look at culture, we look at how do your values and individual values align to culture, okay? Now, culture is the air that we breathe. It's the way we do things. It's the basis for the decisions we make. And what we find is that if your culture is not aligned to the great strategy you put together, culture will just eat it apart. It'll just disintegrate. But if you really are intentional in making sure that your culture maps, it does amazing things. Team is the next piece. So how effective is the team? And what I like to call that the crew. We got to throw a nautical term in there as well, right? And ultimately, at the foundation of the model, the true north, right, is the mission, it's the purpose, it's the direction. But employee engagement. So this whole concept of engagement is the foundation of what's going on. And this is I'm not spelling right here. Engagement. This is where passion comes from as well. So the whole connection to passion and what we love to do and why we love to do it. The process is how we get things done. It's the services, it's the programs we run, it's all the products we produce for our clients. But you know what? It takes our talents, right, to do that. And so it's our individual talents to be able to perform that work. Our customers, or in some people's case, when I work with county government, it's the communities, customers, is the opportunity, right? The opportunity to serve. And so that's that opportunity piece. And ultimately, it comes into results. And what I coach organizations with is that let the results take care of themselves. If you're doing everything else in the model, the results are going to take care of themselves. But if you always are shining a light on results, or financials, it starts to take the eye off the other things that you need it to be. So results is all around impact. And you'll even hear some words like legacy used for that. So what I'm asking you to do, we're going to take a quick 3-minute video here. I just want you to audit this case study. This is a case study, right? We're all part of different organizations, so it's not like I can say, hey, let's audit office centers. Though we could do that, and I know that they just handed out some kind of survey paper, but we're going to take a look at this video as we go through it. Now, I hope it works just because of how the technology is set up, but I'll turn up mine really loud here as well to make sure that you can hear it through the speaker. So let's give this a shot. So the task is, see if you can find elements of all 8 of these within the video. And I know they're all there, so it's just a matter of finding them or not. It takes a little bit of seconds for the YouTube thing to pop up.
Years ago, the first really oceanic people came out of China, came out of Taiwan. Then you get to Polynesia, this oceanic country bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest, and Rapa Nui in the east. 10 million square miles, bigger than Russia. It was discovered by these extraordinary people. They were really the astronauts of our ancestors. They were the greatest explorers on the face of the earth.
Unaided by modern instruments, these extraordinary explorers discovered and settled every livable landmass in the Pacific, relying solely on a complex understanding of the stars, the winds, the waves, and other cues from nature. Guided by this traditional wisdom and perspective, Hawaiians mastered the science of living sustainably on islands. Western expansion, however, brought not only new ways of seafaring, but a shift in perspective on how to interact with the natural environment. Eventually, traditional practices and worldviews were nearly forgotten. But a group of determined individuals got together in the 1970s to resurrect indigenous wisdom by building a traditional canoe and sailing it in the way of the ancestors. Hukulea's first voyage to Tahiti reawakened a cultural pride, identity, and an intimate connection to place. In a generation, Hukulea has sailed over 140,000 nautical miles to reunite the world's largest oceanic nation. Today, Hukulea voyages around the planet with a message of Malama Honua, or caring for island Earth, with a firm belief that blending traditional and modern technologies will help us find our way to a healthier future.
Hukulea, to us, to go around the world, has this enormous potential to go to 40, 50 countries on the planet, to be with the great navigators on Earth. I'm not talking about those in canoes. I'm talking about those who are doing things to give kindness and compassion to the Earth and those who live on it. Those navigators. We're not going to change the world, but we're going to go and build a network of people around the Earth who are going to change it. And our job is to help them be successful.
All right. Everybody was able to hear it? Cool. All right. So pretty cool purpose there, huh? What started out as a nice little project, you know, just to put something together, turned into something much bigger. So, oh, we got some mahalo in there. Awesome, Josh. Love it. Love it. So what is the strategy? What was the purpose for this group? Anybody can either type it in or you can jump on and verbalize it. What did you see or hear as a purpose? You guys didn't know you had to work today, huh? That you're just going to sit back and get entertained. Help others to be successful. Nice. Right? Like I said, they weren't going to be able to change the whole world, but they were going to be able to help others that are in that process of doing it as well. Connecting people around the world, sharing the wisdom. Awesome. I had up there creating a one oceanic nation and then the care for Mother Earth. Those are the two. And again, there's no wrong answers here. Those are the two that kind of popped out for me. What about leadership? What was the examples of leadership that you saw? And how would you categorize those? How did leadership show up? Nobody's answering. They're waiting for the answer. Okay. Let me see what I got here. Ah, there we go. The sharing of the knowledge, right? It's the wisdom side, right? I thought way back to what they said on the greatest explorers, just how they showed the willingness to explore, to take a risk and to go forward. I thought that was pretty amazing. What we got here, creating connections for the past generations. Yep. And who they are as well. Bringing that forward. Beautiful. They did it together. You can't, yep. Done without leadership. That's right. culture. How would you explain their culture? They actually have a Hawaiian term for the culture. I don't know if anybody caught that. I'll put it up there. But how would you explain their culture? Culture is kind of that, like I said, it's kind of the air. It's kind of a little bit more mushy, right? But how did culture stand out to you? Honoring the past, yep. A culture that's grounded, right? Grounded in the past piece. Yep, the whole concept of living, you bet. I got the ability, I got the privilege of listening to some amazing presentations when I was in Hawaii and the whole Hawaii management. Island life manages from the top down, you know, from the top of the volcano down. So they look at how everything transcends all the way to the water, to the ocean, because everything has an impact as it goes down. Well, when Western civilization came, that was the VUCA, by the way, Western civilization, right? They started putting everything in grids, because that's, you know, how that's what it's like in Iowa, right? Everything goes in grids, and it totally messed up the ecosystem as a result. And they're trying to bring that back. So pride, identity, and place, I can't say it, right? And what means kindness and compassion, right? That was their culture. And I'll just keep on clicking through here because you guys are getting the hang of this, right? The team, they were determined individuals just to build the canoe, right? Getting that together. And then the folks that were willing to, like he said it, they explored and got to every single island in that huge area. I mean, that's just amazing how they were able to do that back then. The engagement piece, building that network for people for change, right? So that's that passion, right? Now that passion can take off in 1,000 different directions. So that's why the purpose then becomes so incredibly important. Their ability to navigate was an amazing talent way back then, right? And then now it's all about sustainable living and being able to bring that forward. The customer, in this case, really is the world, right? But he mentioned the 40 to 50 countries they were trying to get to as well. And then ultimately the results, right? They were able to discover every landmass. And then now it's all about success equals helping others kind of help themselves and broadening that out. So again, you got this whole system, and if you were to pull on any one of them, it's going to have an impact elsewhere. And I did put the VUCA up there in the top right corner, right? That was Western expansion. I mean, it messed everything up at that point. I mean, when Captain Cook came and he brought the sparrows and everything else, all the beautiful birds died. I mean, all sorts of stuff happened, right? And it's unfortunate. And that's what we have to look at anytime we come into a system or an ecosystem, the impact that we're going to have on that. So obviously we're sitting here now in a virtual situation. What I'm going to ask here real quick, just type, if you guys can do this, because this is going to happen a couple times here, and I know we're at the half hour already, but see if you have a handheld or if you have it on your laptop, just go out to the internet and type in www.menti, MENTI.com, and then it's going to ask you for a code, and plug in that code 1654012. When we ask that question, use up to 3 words. It could be 1 word, but go ahead and just type in, what would you use to describe your purpose? What are some of the words that you would use to describe either your individual purpose or your collective or shared purpose? You know, if you've got like a mission or a vision statement, anything like that you like to use. I just want to see how this works. We've got a few folks, we've got 13 participants on. It'd be nice to see at least a half dozen people type in to try to give us some a sense. This is great. So this thing just starts to build out. What's wonderful is when we do this with an organization, I did this with 120 people, it's amazing how 3 to 5 words really start to build out and become part of what their purpose and their vision or whatever question we tend to ask. This is really good stuff. We got motivation, support, compassion, loving, right in the heart of it. Let a couple more folks join in. I'm pretty sure even if I move on, you're able to go back and enter in these things. It's great. I love capturing this stuff. So appreciate everyone's input on that. There we go. We got up to 5 now. That's awesome. Support, growth, motivated, integrity. You got strong value statements in there. So we're just working around the helm, right? You can see how values start to play a huge role when we look at that. So the organizational helm, right? This is leading from the helm, organizational. I'm going to ask you to do a quick activity here. If you were to have to rank order from most effective to least effective in the organization that you're a part of, how would you rank the 8 spokes of the organizational helm? You've got strategy, which is around clarity, leadership, which is around consistency, culture, which is around trust, team, obviously effectiveness, engagement is the employee side, right? Process is the effectiveness again, customer engagement, and then we have the results, which are sustainable. Go ahead and rank order those 8. See how that comes out for folks. We run this as part of an interactive session, and what we end up with is the high 2s and the low 2s. What are the top 2 and the bottom 2? And that becomes kind of our focus then for the rest of the session. Is the technology working there? We got Amanda who's got her camera on. She's great. I get the nonverbals from her. I appreciate that. There we go. Now we're getting some. Like I said, I'd like to see about a good half dozen because it gives us some good stats then at that point. So most effective to least effective. And least effective still can be incredibly effective, right? Or it may not be. It's all relative to the organization and the situation. So you can get a couple more. We got culture and trust and team effectiveness at the top right now. Employee engagement on the lower side right now. Yeah, when you've got a sample this small, one person, you know, changing it can make a difference. And again, we're not looking at one organization right now. We're looking at multiple organizations, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Josh. Rank based on, what are we ranking them by? It's the assessment of whatever organization you're a part of, most effective to least effective. So if your leadership you see as being the strongest part of your organization on these 8 dimensions or these 8 elements, put that as top. If you see trust and culture having some issues, let's say, and it's not maybe a very good trust-based culture, you would put that as least. So then you just rank order. Awesome. All right, we're up to 8. So we got customer engagement. Yeah, that's not uncommon, right? Putting the customer first, but seeing culture and trust that high is awesome. Now, we're in this VUCA environment, right? So employee engagement, there's a little bit more stress going on, and obviously the results. You know, I had a conversation with an organization leader this morning. You know, they're down 40% to where they're normally at, and that's actually pretty darn good compared to other situations and other organizations, right? So again, this need for this shared and common purpose to help drive us forward. So thank you for taking the time. So I'm going to share with you kind of some new stuff that's going on. That organizational helm I've been showing you, we're actually graphically changing it. I'm going through a full rebrand right now. Next week, things are going to start looking a little different. Will mentioned the book. It's coming out. Pre-orders are going to start, I believe, as early as next week. And we're going to make that available for folks, audio and ebook within the next month or so. And the printed copies are coming out in November. But I think I'm going to be able to get you guys a special deal for getting the PDF to you. So that's the organizational helm. But this is what the book is about. And there's a story behind this, is that I was working with so many organizations and teams with the organizational helm. It just dawned on me at one point that we needed this individual connection. You got individual, you got team, and then you got organization, right? The 3-tier. And so what we did was we basically mapped the exact same model, but now we're talking about individual purpose, your purpose, and how does that align to the organizational strategy? Self-awareness, again, being core to leadership. Your values and how does it link to the culture of the organization? We talk about crew, that's your inner circle. Everybody's got those folks you surround yourself by, right? And are they good folks? Are they folks that sometimes lead you astray? And do you have a diversified group of folks? Especially now, it's amazing how people are reaching out to others to really gain a sense and gaining a fuller, more broader perspective. Obviously, passion, again, is at the heart, it's at the core. This is what drives you, the things you love to do. The talent is the God-given talent and the things that you've developed. You've got things that you do better than anybody else. And what are those? And you use every opportunity throughout the day to look for an opportunity to apply that, right? And then impact. Impact is just a result of everything else that you're doing. What we found is that by working your way around this model actually helps to refine and redefine your purpose. Purpose isn't something we actually do this work with high school kids, and they love it, and college students. So this thing applies to everyone. Folks that are early, coming into retirement, and what do they want to do as far as a legacy play in retirement. So this applies for everyone. But what we found, we joked with the high school kids, was that you're not going to get a text message that says, here's what your purpose is for life, right? It just doesn't all of a sudden just come. It's a daily process. It's something that you work for, to look for, to uncover and discover. And that's what this helm does. By working each aspect of the helm, it uncovers that. Do we get to do this again with the rebrand? Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, as far as applying it to my rebrand, that's actually a story, and the story is that the summer for us, ever since March, has been our opportunity to look at ourselves and repurpose ourselves. So that's why the rebranding has come about. And I actually had 4 other books in the queue that we were working on, and this was like not even on the radar, and we made this the #1 priority this spring, and we finished this book because, again, helping people through this VUCA environment to really get clear on purpose is key. So grab the helm. It's the inspiration to grab the helm, navigating with purpose, charting that course. I'm privileged, good buddy of mine, Charlie Montreal out of Best Buy, is doing the forward on it. And again, we'll make this available. So we just talked about the individual helm now. So we've gone from this organizational helm to the individual helm. And you don't need to game this one. I mean, go ahead and be raw. This is for yourself. Look at each one of these areas of the individual helm, and ask yourself, do I have complete clarity, like 10 out of 10? I mean, I have absolute clarity on this. Or on the other side, I'm kind of unclear. I'm unclear on this one. I really haven't taken the time to really look at this as part of who I am and what makes up my individual system. So you've got your individual purpose, right? You've got your self-awareness, core values, your inner circle, right? Your crew, the things you love to do, your passion, your gifts, your talents, the opportunity to serve on a daily basis, and your impact and your legacy. If you were to score those, this one isn't a forced ranking. You're just saying, I'm completely clear on one side, or you know what? I got some work to do on the far left side. Yeah, Josh, Tom is my next oldest sibling. He was 7 years older than me. And so there's 8 of us in the family. I'm number 7, but Tom was 7 years older than me. And so myself and my little brother's a second family, or for my mom and dad, but we're all same parents. They were married for 68 years. Dad just actually passed last fall. But the Sicora design and build business is just down off of 100 and Minnetonka Boulevard. And I had the privilege of doing all their organization development work. And when he passed and the leadership was transitioned over, we were able to do that work. So if you read the preface to my book, you'll understand where Leading from the Helm came from. So we'll save that for the book for you. So this is awesome, right? So we're getting 5 responses here. Great spread. I like to see that, right? So the fact that you guys are holding true to your core values to making decisions and things of that nature. But yeah, that impact and the legacy piece, maybe I encourage people to do that all the time, to sit back and say, okay, what is some of the legacy work that you want to do? What is it that you're building that's going to, outlive you in a way, right? In going through that opportunity right now, it's a little bit more uncertain. Interesting too, at the inner circle. That's a great one to take a look at. And so we've got activities that are built into the book to be able to lead you through this. And we're actually building a workbook for it, and we're building a dynamic online site where you're going to be able to go through and do activities on all 8 of these areas. So really good feedback there. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to, at this point, we're 15 minutes left. I'm literally going to kind of fly through each one of the spokes so you have a sense of what they are and not go any deep. And again, this is basically what the book and the workbook opens you up for. But I want to share with you these models. So leadership, when we look at leadership, our model of leadership is, again, just like everything else that you see around the helm, is balanced and holistic. So this is a balanced approach to leadership. You will notice that self, for me, is the starting point, building trust into relationships, advocating for others, having a shared vision, going after the results, being able to work through change collectively, and really being able to be a leader of process in guiding through that. But at the core of that is these 4 colors, personality styles, which then gets into the 4 colors gets into the 8 personality styles. You have all 8 within you, okay? The question is what are the 2 or 3 that you lead with most? And there's ways to determine that and figure it out. Who here went through my 4 color 8 styles webinar last time? And I've also offered it up for others to be able to go through it as well. What I need you to do at any point here, if you haven't received the 4 colors 8 styles profile, make sure that you send me an email asking for the link. It's about a $500 profile, all right? And we will send you the link. We're not going to charge you for it. The profile will automatically get sent to you after you complete it. And then we'll set up a quick little webinar type thing on the side so that we can talk you through what you get. But what it does is it gives you your 4 colors and your 8 styles. So I'm not going to work through this, but this is just the activity of looking at the fact that you have all 4 of these color energies within you. The question is what is your unique mix? So that's good day words, but we also use bad day words because of stress and all the different things. We sometimes don't show up in a good way sometimes. So it's important to honor the fact that we may look different under different circumstances. So just working through this, I want to get through some of these slides. The whole stress thing, we mentioned that, working through the 4 different color energies with stress. And at the core of all this is a concept called the Johari window, and that we're all trying to better understand who we are. And we do that by getting feedback from others, and that's why it's important to have a crew that you're able to expand with. It's also important to use appropriate disclosure and transparency and letting people kind of know who you are, what you're feeling, the vulnerability piece. And things like the profile I just mentioned will also tap into unknown potential that you didn't even know you had, because it can look at and see and guide along with the work that you would do by going through the different steps of the helm. This is the culture model that we use within organizations. This is what allows us to help you understand what the DNA is of your organization or any organization you're working with. If you happen to be a consultant working with other organizations, part of our clientele is working with other consultants to make their products better through the use of the helm, the cultural alignment piece, and the big one is the 8 factors of engagement, which we're going to get into. What's interesting is this is a model of 8. We never even thought about it when we first built it. Then later we went back and said, I wonder if this thing maps to the 4 colors and the 8 styles. And lo and behold, the thing perfectly mapped. It was kind of eerie. We were sitting there literally doing a napkin exercise over lunch one day, and the thing perfectly maps. So we know if we're working and helping an organization through defining their unique DNA for culture, we know we're working off of a balanced model again to do that. So this was just a question, does your culture truly align with the strategy and the direction of the organization? Now, I may have unactivated this. So this is just a quick yes or no, maybe, or I have no idea. Right? So when you think about the culture that you have within your organization, or maybe the organization you work with, is it really strong? Does it really connect with that strategy so you know that it's driving it forward? Or do you think it's working in opposite? That would be a no. And then you got the maybe and the, I don't know. It could, might not, right? And a lot of people don't take the time to even ask this question. So just asking the question brings awareness to the situation and allows us to look through that. So I'm just going to keep clicking on here because I want to make sure that you guys get to see all aspects. The 2 values that are strongest for you, that gets into personal values. There's a whole exercise on that, but it's a fun one to do as well. All right, for me, team, that's where work happens. That's where stuff gets done, right? When we're working together. I don't expect anybody to know what the Comanche is, but if anybody have any idea what the Comanche is? Obviously, it's a little bit more high performing than the Hukulea, or however we say that, right? This thing flies. This is actually the fastest 100-foot monohull in the world. Now that may not mean a lot to anybody else, but this is not one of those boats that can kind of hyperglide where they kind of, the foil where they float on top of the water. This is a true monohull, and this thing has broken all sorts of records around the world. It's just incredible. But if you can imagine, every team member has a exact purpose in what they do and how they do it, but they also know how everybody else does everything else. before they broke one of the world records, the captain of the ship wasn't even able to be there, right? And this other guy literally just stepped in and became the captain at that point, took it over. And then if you ask the guy, the bow guy up there up front, he's got the most dangerous job, but literally it's kind of it's where you throw the 15-year-old kids, man. You just tell them to go up there and do the work. That kid, he knew everything about the ship. It was absolutely amazing. So there's a great 22-minute video on it out on YouTube around the command sheet, and we use it as part of the case study that we do for the program. But again, we use a balanced approach to team effectiveness. If anybody's familiar with Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions, great model, right? But it's a dichotomous model. 2 of the dysfunctions are in green energy, 3 of them are in red energy. Completely leaves out the yellow and blue energy. So when we're looking at effective team, we need all 8 of these cylinders working as we go through this, all right? Then we get into engagement. Now, this is the one I'm most passionate about. If you can't tell, I'm kind of passionate about this stuff, but this is the one I'm most passionate about. This is, again, scientifically the most balanced, actionable engagement model on the planet. We have it at the organizational level. We also have a set of statements that we use when we're working with high school kids, right? And other community groups. So it doesn't have a business aspect. So again, the book that when we get into the programs that we have, lead it through. But again, purpose, #1 factor of engagement so long as trust is present. So those 2 are like battery posts working, but all 8 are critical. Obviously, agility is important at a time with this. Agility was not even mentioned in any of the research that we did with any of the other groups that we were working with. So I'm curious, somebody's already pumped it in there. When you look at these 8 factors of engagement, right, which are the 2 that are most important to you right now, if you were to look at that? What were the 2 most important factors of engagement when you look at this? Accountability is holding myself and others accountable. Purpose is having a shared purpose, having a purpose that's aligned to the organization. Agility is the ability to adapt to changing situation. Recognition is being recognized the way I like to be, fairly across the team, acknowledged for my opinions. Care is caring for each other. Supervisor caring, our care that we have for our customers. Obviously, trust is around that consistency, trusting to get things done. Development is the development of self and others. And then resources, access to the right people, right information, right tools. So you guys have nailed it, right? You've got purpose and accountability as the top 2. Interestingly enough, those are the 2 foundational factors. Even though purpose and trust are the 2 battery posts, the 2 that you need when you have somebody coming into an organization, if you go to Medtronic, they read their mission statement to you during the interview process. And if you're coming into an organization, you got to be really clear about what the accountabilities are and what you're doing. So it's great that we have those 2. This is a fun model. This is called the TOPS model. This really gets into the last part of the helm. So basically, I'm covering off the last part of the helm in these 3 circles. What it is that you all have passion. You have your passion for what you do. There's things that you do that you can spend a whole day doing it and totally forget about eating or anything else. You just love doing it so much. Obviously, I got a bit of a passion for sailing and things like that. All right, you also have a talent. You're just amazingly talented at certain things. When those 2 things come together to take advantage of an opportunity, we call that the sweet spot, right? Pretty simple. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to ask you the questions. And this comes up to 100%. Which percentage of your time do you spend doing the things that you absolutely love? Which percentage of your time is spent just doing those things that you have to do? We call it checkbox activities, duty, obligation. And then what percentage of your time is spent developing skills around the things that you love, but you're just not good at yet, right? Like, I really want to learn Spanish. I want to be able to go to South America and Central America, and I want to be able to go to my Mexican restaurant in Buffalo, Minnesota, and be able to say more than hola, ¿cómo estás, right? I mean, I really do, but I'm not good at it. I have a passion for it, but I'm just not that good at it yet, right? So how much time do you spend developing your skills? So this is a really interesting model. This is a model that we use when we're sitting down one-on-one with employees and asking them, how much of your time do you spend doing the thing that you absolutely love and you're really good at doing? And if an employee is sitting there going, 10, 15, 20%, well, is that enough? Is that enough time to spend on that? I mean, how much time should we be shifting the things that people like to do? So when I interview people now for different roles that I have, they want to know, okay, what needs to get done? I'm like, that's fine. I can figure that out. What I want to know is, what do you love doing? What are you amazing at? And where do you make the greatest impact in the kind of work that you do? Those are the questions I ask. And then I listen and I get their top 3. And then I go, okay, where might that fit within my organization? Okay. So I'm not trying to fit a square into a round. I want to know. And then I'm like, okay, I can use you here and here. Right. And then, yeah, we can talk about developing in other areas, but this is where I really want to use you. Okay. Or I didn't say that right. This is where I want to be able to allow you to be the best that you can be in that situation. So I want to be sure. So, oh, wow. Okay. All right. So the checkbox activities is at 53%. The love is at 33%. And developing skills, that's actually pretty good at 15%. This is not unusual. This is probably a pretty consistent mix. I was actually going to say 35%. If you're hitting the 35%, it's not a bad number. The question is, how much can you shift? How can you shift, doing the things that you love and shifting down the other things? Because you guess what? The stuff that's obligation to you may actually be somebody else's passion. Wouldn't that be cool if you could find somebody to do the things that you don't like to do so much and it's what they love to do? And it's crazy how often that happens in organizations. So process and talent, we talk customer and opportunity, results and impact. So boom. 5 minutes left. What kind of questions do you have? And as you're asking questions, I'm going to click onto the last thing here. You feel free to give feedback as much as you want. And then I loved what somebody said earlier. Mahalo to everybody, which means thank you in Hawaii, by the way. So any questions, feel free to either ask in the deal. Josh, I see the connection. How do we get the inventory, color wheel inventory? If you send me an email, and I don't know if I put that anywhere. If you guys have access to it, I'll put it in the chat. Why not do that? If you send me an email, all right, there you go. If you send me an email and say, hey, I was on that webinar, I'll send you the link and the code. I just ask you not to, broadcast it out to your community because it does cost money, by the way. There is an actual cost. But I want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to experience that. And like I said, we'll set up a side webinar to walk through those 4 colors. I blew through that really quick. The other thing I'm offering, just so you know, is I'm offering an opportunity to do a pulse engagement measure for your entire team, up to 50 people, absolutely free in 2020. All right, so the rest of 2020, this is an offer I'm going to be making to the rest of the world next week. But if you've got 50 or less, it's free. If it's 50 to 100, it's only $1 per person. And if it's over 100 people that you want me to do it for, it's only $2. Gallup charges $15 for that. All right. Other services charge up to $35. I'm only charging $0, $1, or $2 for the rest of 2020. We'll get you the profile. That's like I said, between 250 to 500, depending upon the scope of it. And then the book. All right. I want to make sure that you guys get access to the book. So we're going to make sure to get you the link for that as well. The PDF version's coming out here in the next few days. The ebook should be out within the next month. The audio book within the next 2 months. And then the hard copy is going to be available the first part of November. But the book is going to have the intro to each of these sections. It's going to actually have a fable. We tell the story through the lives of 3 people. Somebody in college, somebody midlife, and somebody towards the end of their career. And then there's activities at the end. Then we've got the workbook that goes with it that's a little more on the explanation, light on the vignette, heavier on the activity. And then we're doing an interactive website that you're going to be able to go into each one of these areas and do the activities online. And then there's going to be all sorts of other resources, video resources, other training, the ability to take other assessments. You can do the values assessment right online. Really cool stuff. And then the other thing we've already started, we already kicked this off with that organization in Hawaii. We're kicking it off with Crow Wing County up in Brainerd. We've got some others. You can actually go through a program that would lead you through each of the steps through a program. So it's interactive, it's an open enrollment and all that. I think somebody might be asking a question. No? Okay, it was just background. So that's a really cool thing because we can do it within the organization where we do a cohort, but we also can do it as an open enrollment where you can be part of other people going through it. Yes, actually, yeah, 3 to 5 is a beautiful number. 5 is the number that we typically use for engagement measurements, meaning you got to have 5 for us to give you the data because we do it in confidence, right? It's all confidential, but actually the number statistically, we can actually go as low as 3 sometimes and do it. So yeah, ideally if you had 5, that would be awesome.
This was awesome. This was awesome.
Good.
Super awesome. Yeah.
I'd love to hear it. The big risk that we took back during COVID was everything was focused on organization and team. Everything was focused organization and team. And literally, I'm talking right after Memorial Day, we hit the pause button on everything. We stopped sending out marketing, everything. And we said we're going to hit a refresh on the brand. We pivoted and we decided to write the book on the individual helm because we said, I mean, change happens here, right? And then it's, if we can do it collectively then and create that, there's more power in it. As long as you have that organizational helm to align to, now we got the shared purpose, but the individual helm is what opens it up. So I'm really curious of you guys' feedback. And like I said, we want to get get a book in each of your hands as well. And I do have the electronic PDF version of it, but again, it's one of those things you can't forward it off to your whole social media stuff because that would kind of defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do. But any other questions or thoughts?
I'll email you about us doing our pulse for sure.
Okay. Yep.
I think it's cool when you don't just focus on the business part of it, but then as a leader, realize, what values or what I put more emphasis on may not be what the people that are reporting to me or the people that are executing a lot of the vision from me. And so finding a way to put a focus on what may be important to them, and maybe we're still going in the right direction or the same, but we're going to get there in a different way. I think it's really cool. I look forward to doing this, on a team level.
Back in the 80s, there was a gentleman out in Utah by the name of Dr. Stephen Covey. And Dr. Stephen Covey he ran a program around the 7 habits of highly effective people. It was all around personal effectiveness. And a good friend of mine by the name of Bob Thiel came in and he said, Stephen, we need to write the book. And we also need to make this as a program that organizations could use. And Procter & Gamble signed up for it and said, you know what? Yeah, if we've got highly effective people that are healthy and well and doing really cool things, our organization is going to benefit from that. Yeah, that makes sense. Novel concept, but seriously, when people were seen as just, a necessary evil in the cog of the engine, right? It wasn't treated that way. Employee engagement wasn't even a concept until the early 90s, and the balanced scorecard didn't happen with Kaplan and Norton until 93. So the 80s and 90s is when this stuff really started happening. Fortunately, that's when I was doing undergraduate and graduate work, right? I came out of the HR program at the University of Minnesota, and I was there from 93 to 95. So, I mean, I was at on the front of this wave, and I've just been riding it for the last few years, but it's all about continuous improvement and evolution. And that's where we're at with the work right now. We're just refining what other great people have done over the course of time. Sorry I didn't spend a lot of time on the 4 colors. We did that on the last one. I just wanted to show that to you, but that's what the profile will be, and I have no problem doing a follow-up webinar on that one as well. But yeah, send me an email. I got a buddy, one of my crew members, Adam. He's amazing. He'll send you a simple little spreadsheet. You fill in the information. We plug it into Qualtrics, which is the power engine of all survey tools right now, completely confidential. The reports come back amazing, and we step you through the action planning exercise that is so empowering for staff. It's unbelievable, and it works. We've got a whole case study on how a bankrupt bank turned everything around in 9 months just using the helm and the 8 factors, but I don't have enough time for that right now. Happy to share it with anybody anytime they want. Thank you, Bethany. Appreciate it. Again, any questions or thoughts, please feel free to send them my way.